Hi, I'm Jim Young. I'm a New Zealand mountain guide, ski guide and assistant climbing guide. I also work here in Aoraki, Mount Cook for the Department of Conservation Alpine Rescue Team, and I'm an avalanche educator and forecaster. I wanted to share some of my knowledge with you guys in a 3-part series. I hope you guys enjoy and I hope you learn something. Welcome to episode 3 in the field. We're at Barron Saddle Hut in Aoraki, Mount Cook National Park. We're going to be going for a ski tour today into some of the glaciated terrain around here, and we're going to be applying the avalanche hazard that we've read in this morning to the field. We're going to be looking at the effects of weather over the last week. It's been really windy up here, so we're going to try to see what the wind's done to the snow, try find some good quality skiing, and of course manage all our hazards and have a good safe day out in the hills. So we're here at the Welchman Glacier below Mount Burns, and just looking at reading the terrain, we're on a glacier. So a glacier is basically like a slow moving river, and the crevasses are essentially the rapids. So we're looking for that still moving water in the center of the glacier here. You can see on the right hand side, it's nicely filled in, and there's a nice snow ramp that kind of covers up all the crevasses up into the upper section of the glacier. Another thing standing here is I'm looking at the effects of weather over the last 3 or 4 days. There's been really strong southwest winds. So as we're standing around here, I can see a lot of evidence of wind transported snow coming from my right here over to my left. And a lot of it exposed back to an old rain crust, so the wind speed was really, really strong through here. And then I'm looking out into the glacier behind us, and I can see it's a bit more uniform looking, so that's possibly had a lot more wind loading. So that might be an area of interest for looking for our wind slab hazard that was forecasted for today. Hey team, so yeah, we've travelled up the Welchman Glacier to an altitude of approximately 2,160 metres. We've travelled behind us through this icefall terrain here, navigating some pretty easy to spot crevasses, which was really nice. And matching the observations in the field to what was forecasted, we've been travelling on a lot of this really wind-pressed, wind-affected snow. So a bit of a thumbs down for the ski quality, but it's showing that the avalanche forecast is probably reasonably accurate. So we've travelled up to here, this little test slope, and we're going to have a dig in the snow and see if we can find any of this wind slab and see if it's reactive or not, and do some tests. So I'm digging my profile here just wide enough to do the required test. So the test that's of most interest to me today with a potential wind slab hazard is an extended column test. So that test dimensions are 90 centimeters wide by 30 centimeters deep. You'll notice I did some probing at the start, and that probing does a couple of things. It tells me if there's any significant layers that I can feel. And in this case, down approximately 80 centimeters, I could feel a really stout rain crust. So probably I'm not going to be super concerned about any snow below that rain crust, because that's what's called a bridging layer. It's very, very thick, and it's extremely unlikely that me as a skier, my weight will be able to affect anything below that crust. Even just with my shovel, I'm starting to have a feel of the different layers, so already I can tell that there's just a gentle sort of, I don't know, a few centimeter thick crust on top of some really loose soft snow, and then underneath that it seems to just get progressively harder and harder. So that's what's called being the right way up. We're just going to tidy up the back wall of our snow profile here. This is so that when we do our tests, all the testing will reveal itself Needs to be nice and tidy. Before I do any testing, I've cut my profile, got it all pretty tidy. Now I can just really quickly basically feel the snow and just feel any layers out. From the top, we got a couple of centimeter crust. We've got about 15 to 20 centimeters of this sugary snow, and then we're into some other sort of crust layer there, and then it gets sort of sugary, more sort of sugar, this really loose, unconsolidated, very weak snow, and then that's getting progressively firmer towards the bottom here. So really in a nutshell, I'm just checking to see if there's any stiff slab layers kind of overlying these weak sugary ones, and it seems like we've just got this small bit in the middle here. So at least at first impression, I don't see anything massively concerning in this upper part of the snowpack so far. So we're doing an extended column test, so that's 90 centimeters by 30 centimeters. I'm going to cut that down to that crust. So the first thing I'm doing is just isolating the sides of this test so that it doesn't re-stick onto the wall there and give me a false result. Then last but not least, we want to cut through the back. So I'm just going to measure 30 centimeters in here. Trick here is trying to ensure that you're cutting straight up and down and not putting any weird bends in your saw or cutting on a funny angle. And we want to ensure that we're cutting down to below the layer of concern. So in this case, I want to cut down into that more denser snow at the bottom, just above that ice layer. So on this end here, I'm going to be hitting, and this will allow me to visually observe the side of the column this way and the side of the column that way. And we're going to hit it 30 times, 10 easy from the wrist, and 10 moderate from the elbow, and 10 moderate from the shoulder, 10 hard, from the shoulder. So light, moderate, hard, 30 hits. So I can already see that just this very immediate surface crust failed on basically the first hit. Is that a concern? Not really. Maybe for future snow loading this would be of interest, but for right now, just this top little crust failing when it's isolated, we're just going to carry on. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. I probably went one over there into 11. That's all right. Now we'll go 10 from the elbow. There we go. So that's an interesting result. So on the 14th moderate hit, we have a non-propagating failure. So in other words, the whole column hasn't failed, just a section of it, down approximately 35 centimeters from the snow surface. So that's an interesting result. So I'm just going to, if I had my notebook, I'd use that, but I'm going to use my snow notebook here and write 14 and N for non-propagating. So that's 20. Now we're going to go hard from the shoulder. So now that's an inconclusive test beyond there, because we've had enough snow now fail and fall off this thing, so we can't really test much beyond that. Just for the sake that we're here, I'll just keep hitting the rest of it to see if anything happens at the bottom, but any test beyond this point has to be taken with a grain of salt. So we've just done our test, relating this back to today's hazard of moderate for wind slab avalanches on the lead to the southwest. I would say what we've observed here is we've just got a small wind skin on the surface from really high wind speeds. It hasn't really deposited that slab into this piece of terrain, and the testing we've just performed would indicate that's the same. So there's no sign of that big stiff wind slab sitting here on the surface. And then lower down into the snowpack, this was be more typical of what you'd see at this time of year, and especially in a cold, shady area, and that is loose, unconsolidated, faceted snow. So weak, granular snow. It doesn't stick very well together, sitting within that top sort of half meter of snowpack. Very typical for this time of year. So what this shows us here, team, is we don't appear to have a wind slab concern on this slope above us. The testing we've done here indicates that it's most likely safe for us to travel as a team up to our intended spot on this col and have a nice ski run down. So that's a thumbs up so far. Good morning, we're here at Barron Saddle Hut. We're getting going bright and early. It was really cold last night, no wind, and we're getting going early so we can beat the heat around a little steep north-facing cliff before it starts raining rocks and snow on us. Good trip planning, good to have your timing built into it. It's key to get moving early and stick to your times to have a successful day. Cool, so we started early this morning. We've come through the pinch point on the high traverse out from Barron Saddle out to Mueller Hut. It's a good reason to start your day early, managing hazards other than avalanche hazard. You can see behind me, steep north-facing cliffs with ice and snow and rock on there. It's the kind of thing you want to get through before the hottest part of the day. Cool, so we're up here at Sladen Saddle. This is a classic part of a ski trip where it's very committing. There's no other way around here. It's a big, steep, north-facing avalanche path, so gets a lot of loading from southerly winds, and obviously you can catch a lot of sun and heat during the hottest part of the day. So you can see the snow I'm standing on is really, really firm. It's had so much wind through here that it's probably stripped most of the snow away rather than loading it, because it's just going so fast. It's like a little wind tunnel. So probably not the best quality skiing, but at the same time, it's probably also reduced our concern of wind slab hazard because it's just been so windy. Cool, well that's us finishing our ski tour from Barron Saddle Hut to Mueller. Mueller Hut's just behind us there, so we're almost home and hosed. Had to make a ton of decisions along the way. You know, decisions in avalanche terrain, decisions in mountaineering terrain, you know, traveling on glaciers. It's been a really good day out. I hope you guys have learned something. Just wanted to kind of share my point of view on traveling through the mountains, and if you guys want to check out any further resources based on the stuff we've talked about through episode 2 and 3, you can check out avalanche.net, you can check out metservice.com, metview.com, Otago Polytech if you want to go and do some formal avalanche training. If you're looking for a guide, you can go onto the NZMGA website and you can find a guide and have a guide teach you some of these skills. Heaps of ways to get involved, and I just wanted to share my point of view on traveling through the mountains, and hope you guys had a good time. That's the end of episode 3 and also the wrap on the 3-part series, so thanks for tuning in.